Hey guys, let's dive into myth number two. Always stretch before running. Um, let's start first with if you keep a rubber band in the freezer and then you take it out and you stretch it, what will happen? Most likely it will break pretty fast because it's really rigid, because it's been in the freezer, so the rubber turns hard. But if you hold it in your hand and you rub it for a little bit, it gets warm. And then you can stretch it out quite far, like it's intended to do. And the same thing happens with muscles. If you always stretch a muscle, it will break. And a cold muscle is more rigid and much harder to stretch and easier to overstretch than a warm muscle. So the whole idea of a warm up is pretty simple. That's to make exercises to warm up the muscles to be able to perform at the best without getting injured. What most people refer to as stretching is what it's called static stretching. So that's basically you are doing something to the end of the range of motion and you hold it there for quite a long time. That's what you're stretching. It's all about. And that's the same with the rubber band, that you pull as far as you can. You hold that for 10 to 30 seconds. And when hold in long durations, this is quite interesting, can actually cause you to tense up and get tighter instead of getting loosen up, which is not what you want to do before you go running. In fact, static stretching before a run might actually increase your injury risk, decrease performance. So exactly the opposite what a warm-up should actually do. According to a study in 2014, static stretching where you're holding a non-moving position for 10 to 20 seconds, can actually have a negative effect also on your strength and power. This matters a lot for especially sprinters. But other studies also have found that stretching pre-run can also make running economy for distance runner a lot harder or tougher. There's no concrete evidence that you can reduce like the delayed onset muscle soreness or DOMS. So doing it before is not going to help you. So what should you do instead of doing the stretching before? The whole idea of warm-up is like we said before, it's like it says, to warm up, to get a blood flow into the muscles, to be ready to do the exercise we are planning to do. That means to get the heart rate up slowly. The heart need to be ready, the lungs need to be ready, the muscles need to be ready, the ligaments and everything need to be ready. So we want to slowly build up the heart rate and your breathing capacity before you run. So dynamic stretching. Let's get into that because I don't like the word dynamic stretching. Because it should be dynamic movements in your range of mobility. We are not trying to stretch, we're just getting the mobility for running. And that's the difference. Why I call it stretching, I don't know, but I don't like it. So that is basically stuff like rolling your hips, foot rolls, knee activation, shoulder rolls, neck rolls, all about loosening up, all about getting the mobility, not the flexibility. I will go through the flexibility, mobility versus flexibility in a different one later on. So it's all about loosening up. It's all about making the motions you do for running, because that's what you're going to do. And you only need as much mobility within the range of your motion to be able to run. Simple as that. Okay, so what do I do? Here's some tips. What I do when I go running. So on slow runs, I normally put the shoes on and I go run. As the intensity is so low, I will not put so much like impact on my body, and I warm up slowly until I feel good. And some runs actually turn out to be faster, some turn out to be slower, but it's just I listen to the body and I go nice and slow. On medium to good pace, I do my 1 minute loosening up routine. It only take about a minute, minute and a half, maybe 2 minutes. Then I start at a minute slower than my normal pace for 5 to 10 minutes. So 1 to 2 kilometers. I just take it nice and easy, and then I run. If I want to have a sort of a time, but I don't really want to go full, I might actually do the first kilometer without putting the watch on. All right, intervals, fast runs, and races. Now we're coming into, we have a high intensity. Now we really need to do a proper warm-up. And a proper warm-up can be the 10 to 15 or 20 minutes, depending on your race, depending on what you do, and depending on your temperature. Because if you're running in a cold country, you need to warm up a lot more than you do in a warm country. That's just normal because the muscles are cooler, right? I do my running drills. I have a sequence of about 10 different drills I do, and they all mimic the motions I do from running. I'm preparing my body for running. And then also I do my loosening up routine. Then I'm bringing up the intensity slowly. So I start with maybe a jogging and then go a little bit faster until I get to an intensity that I'm going to be on my planned run. So if I'm going to go race, I will go fast pace. So the last part of my warm-up, I will go on that pace. I will not go that far, but I will go on that pace. I'm preparing my body for what I need to do. And then about 15 minutes before the race, I stop doing the warm-up, but I make sure I'm loose and I keep myself loose and ready to go. And I drink some water, and then the race is off. Then after the race, or after the run, this is a time when you can do static stretching, especially on areas that have stiffened up. But do not push it too far. Remember the rubber band. You don't want to overstretch a rubber band because you actually might rip the muscles, and that's really painful, and it will take a long time to heal. So not to make an injury, make a gentle stretch. They should feel the tension, but it should not be painful. Hold it for 10 to 20 seconds as it helps the range of motion, or ROM that we call it. Okay, that's it for this video. Follow me for the next of my myth busting.